Hey, welcome to the Art of Business. This is Art Goetz. I'm here with the Strategic CFO, Dan Corridor. Actually, he's the CEO of a company called the Strategic CFO. And today we're going to talk about the most amazing new way to approach probably one of the most important aspects of every company is the accounting department and all of the related things that go around with money and billing and receivables and payables, the various things that come along with having a functioning accounting department. The Strategic CFO has come up with a new way to solve this old problem called near sourcing. And so I'm going to let Dan tell us a little bit about near sourcing. So welcome to the program, Dan.
Thank you, Art. Appreciate it. So our firm, we're a consulting firm. We're made up of a bunch of accountants. And traditionally, we've worked on project-oriented businesses, helping companies go from cash-based to accrual basis, helping them professionalize their back office, and providing accountants to work in accounting departments within businesses is what we do. We've been around a long time. The firm was founded in '96. I've owned the firm for the last 5 years. And traditionally, that's what we do with our employees here in Houston. I've always been against outsourced accounting, and I'll come back to that in a minute. This opportunity and this new business model called near sourcing came out of a need. And the need is the following. We noticed that we were talking to a lot of businesses that were on the smaller end, maybe $10 million and less, $5 million and less, that were growing, and they needed very good accounting, good financial records, but they simply couldn't afford it. And there's a big difference for those of you out there who may be in that situation or a growing company, but there's bookkeeping and then there's accounting. The difference is with bookkeeping, you're simply entering transactions into an accounting system and pushing a button. With accounting, you're applying accounting principles. We encourage all companies to follow US GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and that's how you should be maintaining your financial records. That's the most accurate way to maintain your financial records. Remember that your financial statements are one of many tools to run your business. But in order to provide those tools with the quality of people that we're doing here in Houston, is we provide people that are expensive because they know what they're doing. This controller is usually a CPA. The accounting manager is a 4-year degreed accounting person. And a small business can't afford, between those two alone, a $300,000 package of salaries for 2 people to get good professional financial records.
So I might go even a little bit further in that regard to say that most small business owners, not only can they not afford a full accounting department, they don't even know what that means. You know,
great point.
There's so many things that come out of an accounting discussion that most business owners, I think, you just put your blinders on, you put your head down, and if the checkbook balances at the end of the month, hallelujah, set it and forget it.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, so let me touch on that for a bit. Great point. So yeah, a good business owner, an entrepreneur, whoever's owning that business, they're focused on making widgets, whatever they're great at. They're experts at that. They've been successful. They're growing it. But nobody thinks of accounting. Usually, actually, when I meet an entrepreneur for the first time, they're talking and they tell me about their CPA. And I already know 99% of the time, when they refer to their CPA, they're referring to their tax person.
Guy, right.
The guy who does their taxes.
Hey, if they're like me, when you start bringing up numbers, I start going la 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 because I can't deal with it. I don't really know, and sometimes it's easier not to know.
Right. Well, and the tax professional is usually the entrepreneur's first fiduciary, first relationship person that they trust, their trusted advisor, because everybody's got to file a tax return. And we all want to pay our fair share of tax, but we don't want to overpay tax.
So you mean my tax guy's not my accountant?
No. Well, my response to that is, would you go to your cardiologist for a colonoscopy? You know, we in the tax world, we as CPAs have different roles. Some tax people are CPAs are great auditors. Some CPAs are great tax people. Some are great in doing valuations. Forensic accounting. We have our own area, our own lanes. A very good tax person, and there's great tax people out there. They know tax law. They know how to work with businesses, but they're not CFOs. And I'm sorry if I upset some tax people out there, but they're not. They've never managed cash flow. They've never managed an operation. They've never made payroll. Being a CFO, and having US GAAP financials is very different from tax. Think of this. A tax person's job, a good one, is minimize that net income so you pay the least amount of tax possible, right? Well, our job in managerial accounting is get that net income and get that EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, as high as possible, because your operating income, your EBITDA, that is reflected eventually in your enterprise value. So you want that number to be as high as possible, and you want to make money and have cash.
It might also come up when you're trying to raise debt too, or get some capital financing from your bank.
So you want your EBITDA to be high, not low. So there's a conflict of interest on our goal as a tax preparer or a managerial accountant. What are we after? So back to that, every business should have good financial tools and accurate US GAAP financials, because you want to not only run your business and know that your margins are right or what the variances are, your KPIs. Your US GAAP financials uses proper accruals, and we follow accounting principles, proper revenue recognition, which keeps changing and has changed tremendously. We need to keep up with that. And a clerical person, a bookkeeper, is not going to give you that.
Well, that sounds like a huge box of snakes you just talked about, right? There's a lot of things in that box right there. It sounds expensive, complicated, and it is. How the heck can any business owner possibly manage that? What is this near sourcing thing?
And it is expensive, and that's the issue. And the business model came up in 2022 because one of our clients, after 3 years of being a fantastic client, is a client today as well, came to me one day for lunch and said, Dan, I can't afford these two people anymore. And we had a controller and accounting manager in there full time, doing great work, providing US GAAP financials, everything's accurate, happy as can be from that perspective, from a quality. But from a cost perspective, we're billing them $23,000 a month. Ouch. And our margin's tiny. And my people are asking
and he's screaming bloody murder because it's too much.
Well, client's screaming bloody murder, our margin's insignificant, and the people working are wanting a raise. We lose, lose, lose. So I asked our owner of the business to give me a few days, let me come back with a solution. And because I've got a friend in another industry, not accounting, doing something similar, I said, I think we can make this work with near sourcing. Then I went back to the drawing board and I thought, outsourcing. What do I hate about outsourcing? I don't like outsourcing. I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA. I've been a CEO, I've worked for very large companies. I know what I don't like about outsourced accounting, and many companies will provide you outsourced accounting. Two major fallbacks with outsourced accounting. Not only is a person very far removed from your operation, they're completely disconnected from your operation. They never meet the client. They're never at the client. They're not at their plant. They're not at the business, at the warehouse. They never meet. They're outsourced. They're somewhere else.
Not only that, I like to say it's kind of an exercise in kissing frogs too, because you might run through 2 or 3 people before you find somebody that you can connect with and work with.
Exactly. There's no connection. There's no personal connection. I'm a huge believer that the accounting department, the accounting people working in that department should have a very strong connection to operations. When I used to work for large companies, we would take the accounting department out to the field. We'd go out to the plant, the warehouse, the water treatment plant, show them what's being transacted, what's being depreciated. Accountants have to understand that. One of our problems as accountants, and I'll say it as an accountant, is that we like being in our cubicle. We like being in our box. We don't think outside the box. A good accounting department and good accountants understand the operation. So with that disconnection of outsourced, it doesn't work. The second thing I don't like about outsourced accounting is a lot of these companies that do it, they're working on multiple clients. They're not dedicated to one client. So we fixed those problems with near sourcing. So we went back to the drawing board and came up with our model of near sourcing. Here's how near sourcing works. You have a dedicated team of a controller and an accounting manager, 2, and it could be more or it could be 1, but it's usually that's our starting package is 2. It's a flat fee that you're paying of $10,000 a month, so keep that number in mind. They're dedicated to your business. They're not working on anything else. They're working full-time on your business during your business hours. Here's the difference. They're virtually present in your office. Pandemic, I think, helped us a little bit because people got used to working virtually and remotely and everything else, although we were using Zoom before the pandemic. But your accounting team is virtually present via Teams, so we create a group in Teams for this client. Anybody in the business that you want in your business can just simply hit join meeting and pop into the meeting. Your accounting department's there. Our accountants are required to be with their camera on, present there. If they happen to step out to the restroom or lunch break, they type in in the chat box, going to lunch, be back in 45 minutes.
So it's just like every other coworker in the office?
Like
they just happen to be...
It's like being in the office next door.
They just happen to be somewhere else.
Just happen to be somewhere else.
And in your case with near sourcing, it's in the same time zone, if I'm not
thank
mistaken.
You for bringing that
right?
up. The other challenge with outsourced companies, not all of them, because I know there's one large one that does all U.S., but most of them are in other parts of the world that are 8, 10, 12, 15-hour time difference.
With a language barrier to
With
boot.
a language barrier. That doesn't work. So that was one of the other check the boxes for us. So we made it, our accountants have to be in our time zone. Secondly, language barrier. They have to be perfect English. And they have to know U.S. GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and they have to have worked with U.S. companies.
That seems like a high bar to achieve. How did you find all these people?
It's actually, we were, because of my past experience in the last 30 years, I spent a lot of time in Latin America, a lot of time in Mexico. So the way we work in our business model, it happens to be that our accounting professionals are based in Mexico. Different parts of Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico City, different parts of Mexico. But here are the qualifications before we hire. Great English, U.S. companies that they've worked for. Actually, so far, many of them have worked for big 4 accounting firms in Mexico. So they've got great technical skills. They're used to working on U.S. companies, as I mentioned. So none of the transactions are different. It all works. And with accounting systems today, which are mostly in the cloud online, there's no issue there as well. So because they are virtual, because they're located in Mexico, and they are good English speaking, we're able to lower that cost significantly. It's just an economics of the different countries. Now, the connection to operations. What we do here is that dedicated team we have for your business works only for you. They are present in your office, no matter where you are in the U.S., onboarding. So they're going to spend a week to 2 weeks onboarding in your office, meeting you in person, learning your company, and then they go back. And then on a quarterly basis, the way our business model works is we have the accounting team come up on a quarterly basis to your office for a quarterly review on site. And they spend anywhere between 3 and 5 days on site. It depends on where you are and what complexity of your business. So we take care of the physical presence. They're on site quarterly. They're on there for onboarding. We take care of the multiple companies being worked on. They only work on your business. We're able to provide professional accounting records, monthly close processes. And remember, financial statements are historical in nature. Well, we bring a lot more to the table. Our accountants, our teams are trained to be analytical. We do forecasting. We implement the 13-week cash flow forecast with every one of our clients. And because you are part of the Strategic CFO family, you have CFO support, not just myself. We have other CFOs in our firm. And the way we've got our business model worked, one of our controllers in our firm reviews month-end work before it's turned into the client. And there's a lot of communication with our entire team at the Strategic CFO. So you're not alone. You get the CFO support. You've got a dedicated team, quality financial statements, produced timely every month, and all of this with a 60% savings. So our client that I mentioned that we converted first last year that was paying $23,000 a month is now paying $10,000 a month for actually better work, very dedicated people in your office virtually.
So, this is all really interesting to me. And, I think of a lot of business owners who might be watching this are thinking, you know what, everything's just fine. We're just clocking along and chugging along and everything's just great. I don't really need this. But I know personally when it happens, it's a crisis. You get a phone call from a potential buyer that might want to buy your business. Maybe you have a crisis in your family and you need to sell the business on short notice. Maybe you need to borrow some money and the banker shows up and says, what the heck is that? I don't do QuickBooks over here at the bank. We need more than that. And so I think a lot of business, do you find that a lot of business owners are in crisis and all of a sudden they're like, oh crap.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate, but most time we get called when there's somebody's up against the wall with a knife at their throat or something's going on. It shouldn't be that way, right? It should be something you have proactively implemented before that. Mm-hmm. But yes, raising debt, talking to investors, enterprise value, exiting your business. You're going to need good
estate
You're
planning.
going to need a balance sheet that's solid, that's done by professionals to do that.
You mean QuickBooks isn't enough?
No, QuickBooks is fine as a software, but it's trash in, trash out, right? We've got a lot of companies that run great on QuickBooks, but it's the accounting principles that are applied to QuickBooks transactions. That's the big difference. Now, the other thing before I forget, I thought this started for little tiny companies that couldn't afford people. Well, in the last 6 months, we've kind of thrown that out the window. We've got companies that are $50, $70 million in revenue that have joined and hired us under the nearshoring business model simply because of the cost savings. Because they've got a couple of people or they've got a turnover in their accounting department and there's no stability. So we bring the stability because in addition to having a dedicated team, we cross-train our teams. So the client's never going to be out of an accounting department.
So ironically, outsourcing might be more stable than having it on your payroll and in-house. I'm sorry. Nearsourcing might be more beneficial.
You get more stability because we're going to cover that. We're not going to have, if somebody needs a leave or is on vacation, we're going to cover that. So you're not going to have that turnover or that missing piece of accounting. The other thing is, again, we thought it was for small businesses. Well, I was talking to a friend who's involved with a very large publicly traded company, oil and gas services. They're global. And I was sharing my thoughts on our new business model, how exciting it is. And she said, can you scale it up? And I said, absolutely. Well, what happens, make a long story short, we've now opened up an office in Monterrey, Mexico, only for that client. And we've got 12 accountants working on their accounting. And it's soon going to grow to 15 and 20 and probably beyond. Under the same business model, they're virtually present. They're going to be present quarterly. They're providing good work. They're working online. It's just the cost savings. So we're able to provide that cost savings. We are not eliminating our consulting business. We're not eliminating our people that we have here. As a matter of fact, we're going to be hiring solid controllers for our office in Houston because these are the ones that are going to be supervising these different teams as we grow. So we are going to continue to provide jobs for our local controllers and CPAs that want to join us because this thing's growing and it's been fantastic so far. Provide solid professional accounting at a 60% savings. So it's for anybody, any industry. I would say the only industry we cannot help is the oil and gas production industry, And that's because oil and gas production accounting is very unique to the US and we'd have to hire US people. Other than that, any industry, any size business from zero to billions, because we have this multi-billion dollar client, we can help you save costs. I would love to talk to more companies out there that are public traded because we can open what's called the shared offices, shared services offices. We can scale up to as many accountants as we need, but our typical client is going to be, $5 million to a couple $100 million in revenue. Doesn't matter if you're public or private, but we'll be able to provide good accounting, professional accounting at a 60% savings. I don't know any other company that's doing this. I don't think I answered your question. You said, how are you able to do this? Well, because of my experience in Latin America and Mexico over many years, I was able to develop a very large network, and that network has helped me grow this. So we're able to interview a lot of accountants that are very qualified to join us under the nearshoring model. So we started with 2 back in October, and in total we're up to over 22 right now, and it's going to continue to grow every month. So we're excited about it. Anybody have any questions, please contact me at dcorridor@strategiccfo.com or just call me on my cell phone, 713-501-7481, because I'd love to tell you more about how it works. Every company's different. The onboarding process is very different for each company. Let me give you an example. If a company has very clean books and they're in QuickBooks or whatever else, and they just want to transfer over to nearshoring because either they want to save money on their existing accounting team or they don't have an accounting team. Well, if it's very clean, it's just a quick we can be up and running with nearshoring in a week or two. If a company is older, has a lot of history, and accounting maybe needs a little bit of cleanup, it depends on how much cleanup that we will provide for you, and then we will transition you. We've got cleanup teams here in Houston, and they will get things ready, get things where we can hand it over to the nearshoring team and get that nearshoring team onboarded. So it depends on, every situation is different, depends on the complexity of your business and on the cleanliness of your accounting records and what condition they're in.
Wow, that's a lot to take in, but I think the takeaway for me is that this new near sourcing approach works for almost any size business. It catches you where you are entering the process. You might be doing it great in-house, but just looking to cut costs. You might not be doing so good at all in-house and really needing some of this triage and remedial work to get you up to speed, so then you can slide into a near sourcing approach to outsourcing of your accounting function and become a much more productive and profitable business by virtue of the fact that you actually know what the heck's going on in the financial suite and end of your business. And it's really not something that most business owners can afford. Take the time to assemble an in-house accounting function. It typically just happens, and then you end up with what you end up with. And in this model, it allows you to flex in and out of where your needs are and put focus efforts on that, but then actually settle into the cadence of a more mature company that manages its accounting and bookkeeping in a proper function to get the most out of the business.
Yep. So whether you have an accounting department or you don't have an accounting department, if you have an accounting department, don't have an accounting department, you're growing, you're interested in having an accounting department, any one of those scenarios, it doesn't matter the size of your business or the size of your accounting department, we can scale up. It doesn't have to be a team of 2, it can be a team of 20, as we've seen with our large client. But our typical client, it's going to be our typical package is team of 2, and we can scale that up. But whether it's saving money or just the need to have an accounting department, we can certainly help you. Like I said, compare our numbers to hiring locally. I just don't see how you can beat saving 60% on your accounting department, but we'll make it happen. We will work with whatever team you have in place. We do have a couple clients that it's kind of a blended thing where they wanted a custom package, so we did that as well. But anyway, we'd like to help you on getting a professional accounting department in place, getting professional financial records in place, and saving you money and being very efficient while we do it.
So thanks for joining us today on The Art of Business. Appreciate everybody's attention and time. If you need to get a hold of the Strategic CFO, of course they have a website. You can reach out to me and I can get you in touch with Dan. And you need to get your accounting straight in order to grow your business. And I don't think you can do it without it. And certainly it's something to pay attention to for every business, regardless of where you are in your quest to grow.